My curious fellows, in 1853, American warships crashed through Japan's ancient veil of samurai and seclusion, humbling a defiant nation. Japan struck back, shaking the world with Pearl Harbor's fire. Yet, when atomic bombs scorched Hiroshima and Nagasaki, was it America's vengeance or Japan's own gambit that unleashed this doom? In today's video, we'll uncover why all this happened in Japan. If you're new to this channel, subscribe to Vanished Files and hit the bell icon. I upload real history and true crime videos. My curious fellows, picture Japan before 1853, a land locked in time. For over 2 centuries, the Tokugawa shoguns kept Japan closed, banning foreign contact. Samurai roamed, upholding honor and tradition. Trade was forbidden, and outsiders were turned away. This isolation preserved Japan's culture, but left it unprepared for the storm about to hit. In July 1853, Commodore Perry's black warships steamed into Tokyo Bay. My curious fellows, Japan had never seen such machine steam-powered giants demanding trade. The shoguns faced a grim choice: open their ports or risk war. Japan signed unequal treaties, losing control over trade. This was the first wound, a humiliation that sparked a fire in Japan's soul. The treaties tore Japan apart. Some samurai demanded war against the foreigners. Others saw a need to change. My curious fellows, the shogunate's weakness sparked rebellion. Young leaders dreamed of a new Japan, one that could stand tall. The old order was crumbling, and a revolution was brewing. In 1868, the Meiji Restoration changed everything. Young samurai overthrew the shogunate, restoring Emperor Meiji to power. They vowed to modernize Japan, casting aside old ways. Japan would no longer bow, would rise. This was the spark of a new era, born from humiliation. Japan transformed at lightning speed. Factories rose, railroads spread, and a modern army formed. My curious fellows, Japan studied the West, adopting its technology but keeping its soul. By the 1890s, Japan was no longer a weak nation, it was a rising power, ready to prove itself. In 1894, Japan tested its strength against China. The First Sino-Japanese War was a bold move. Japan's modern navy crushed China's fleet, seizing Taiwan and influence in Korea. This victory shocked the world. Japan was no longer a victim but a conqueror. In 1904, Japan took on Russia, a Western giant. Japan's navy sank Russia's fleet in the Russo-Japanese War, securing Port Arthur and global respect. This was no fluke. Japan's ambition was now a force, reshaping Asia's balance of power. Japan's hunger grew. By the 1930s, it eyed Asia's resources. Japan invaded Manchuria in 1931, setting up a puppet state. This bold move alarmed the world, but Japan saw itself as Asia's leader, destined to dominate. By 1937, Japan launched a full-scale invasion of China. My curious fellows, the Second Sino-Japanese War was brutal, with cities like Nanjing devastated. Japan's ambition was unstoppable, but it was pulling the world toward a bigger conflict. On December 7, 1941, Japan stunned the world. Its planes bombed Pearl Harbor, crippling America's Pacific Fleet. This daring attack was Japan's bid for dominance, but it awoke a sleeping giant. America roared back. The Pacific War turned against Japan. Battles like Midway in 1942 saw Japan's navy battered. The tide was shifting, and Japan's dreams of empire began to crack. In August 1945, Japan faced its darkest hour. America dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Cities turned to ash, and Japan surrendered. This was the wound that broke a nation's spirit. After surrender, America occupied Japan from 1945 to 1952. My curious fellows, the old ways were swept away. A new constitution brought democracy, and Japan began rebuilding, determined to rise from its ashes. By the 1960s, Japan was reborn. Factories hummed, technology soared, and cities like Tokyo gleamed. From cars to electronics, Japan became a global powerhouse, proving its strength. My curious fellows, Japan's army was no longer just samurai. In the 1870s, Meiji leaders built a modern military, trained in Western tactics. Conscription made every man a soldier. Japan was gearing up, not just to defend, but to dominate. Japan's schools changed too. The Meiji government made education mandatory, blending Western science with Japanese values. By the 1880s, literacy soared, creating a skilled workforce. Japan was building a foundation for power. Factories sprouted across Japan. By the 1880s, textiles, steel, and shipbuilding thrived. Workers filled cities, and smoke rose from chimneys. Japan wasn't just catching up with the West, it was racing to surpass it. Japan's culture evolved. Western suits replaced kimonos for some, and ballroom dancing became a craze. Yet samurai traditions lingered in art and honor. Japan was balancing old pride with new ideas, shaping a unique identity. In 1910, Japan annexed Korea. After years of influence, Japan took full control, calling it a step for Asian unity. The world saw it differently, a sign of Japan's growing hunger for empire. Meiji leaders rewrote Japan's laws. By the 1880s, they crafted a modern legal system, inspired by Europe but rooted in Japanese order. Courts replaced samurai justice, and Japan gained respect as a structured nation. Japan's navy grew fearsome. By the 1890s, shipyards built modern warships, rivaling Western fleets. Japan trained sailors in British tactics, preparing for global challenges. This was a nation ready to flex its muscle. The Meiji Constitution of 1889 was a milestone. My curious fellows, it gave Japan a parliament, blending monarchy with democracy. Emperor Meiji remained supreme, but the people gained a voice. Japan was now a modern state. Japan's cities modernized fast. By the 1890s, Tokyo and Osaka buzzed with electric lights and trams. Western-style buildings rose beside temples, showing Japan's blend of old and new. This was a nation on the move. My curious fellows, Japan's trade exploded. By the 1890s, silk and tea exports flooded global markets. Japan's economy grew, funding its ambitions. No longer a closed nation, Japan was a player in world trade. Japan's pride swelled after 1895. My curious fellows, the Treaty of Shimonoseki ended the Sino-Japanese War, giving Japan, Taiwan, an influence. The world took notice Japan was no longer just an island nation. The Boxer Rebellion in 1900 saw Japan join Western powers. Japanese troops helped crush the uprising in China, proving their military might. Japan was now a global player, respected and feared. Japan's alliance with Britain in 1902 was a coup. My curious fellows, the Anglo-Japanese alliance gave Japan equal status with a Western power. This partnership boosted Japan's confidence, setting the stage for bigger moves. My curious fellows, Japan's population grew in the early 1900s. Cities swelled as rural workers flocked to factories. This boom fueled Japan's economy but strained resources, pushing Japan to look beyond its borders. Japan's education system became a model. By the 1900s, universities trained engineers and scientists. Japan's youth were ready to lead, blending discipline with innovation. This was the brainpower behind an empire. In 1914, Japan joined World War I, siding with the Allies. Japan seized German territories in Asia. This move expanded Japan's reach, but it also stirred tensions with neighbors like China. Japan's demands on China in 1915 sparked outrage. My curious fellows, the 21 demands sought control over Chinese territory. China resisted, but Japan's aggression showed its imperial hunger was growing unchecked. By the 1920s, Japan's economy faced challenges. My curious fellows, global trade slumped, and rural poverty grew. Japan's leaders saw expansion as the answer, setting their sights on Asia's resources. Japan's military grew restless. In the 1920s, ultranationalists pushed for conquest. They saw Japan as Asia's savior, destined to lead. This ideology fueled a dangerous path toward war. The 1931 Mukden incident was a turning point. My curious fellows, Japan staged an attack to justify invading Manchuria. This bold lie led to the creation of Manchukuo, a puppet state under Japan's control. Japan's invasion of Manchuria shocked the world. The League of Nations condemned Japan, but it walked away, defiant. Japan was now an outcast, doubling down on its imperial dreams. In 1937, Japan's war with China escalated. My curious fellows, the Marco Polo Bridge incident sparked the Second Sino-Japanese War. Japan's armies swept through China, leaving destruction in their wake. The Nanjing Massacre in 1937 was horrific. Japanese troops ravaged the city, leaving countless dead. This brutality stained Japan's name, pushing it further into global isolation. Japan's war machine grew. My curious fellows, by 1940, Japan allied with Germany and Italy, forming the Axis powers. This pact aimed to dominate the world, but it set Japan on a collision course with the West. In 1941, Japan seized French Indochina. This move for resources angered the US, leading to an oil embargo. Japan's economy choked, pushing its leaders to plan a desperate strike. My curious fellows, Japan's Pearl Harbor attack in 1941 was a gamble. Its planes crippled US ships, but America's resolve hardened. Japan had started a war it couldn't win. The Battle of Coral Sea in 1942 was a setback. Japan's navy clashed with American and Australian forces, losing key ships. Japan's Pacific dominance was slipping away. Midway in 1942 was a disaster. America's carriers sank Japan's fleet, shifting the war's momentum. Japan's dreams of Pacific control were crumbling fast. Guadalcanal in 1942-43 bled Japan's forces. My curious fellows, brutal jungle fighting against American troops drained Japan's resources. The empire was stretched thin and defeat loomed. Japan's home front suffered. My curious fellows, by 1943, food and fuel shortages hit civilians hard. Air raids began, and Japan's people faced growing fear and hardship. Iwo Jima in 1945 was a bloodbath. American forces overwhelmed Japan's defenders on this tiny island. Japan's losses mounted, and its spirit was breaking. Okinawa in 1945 was Japan's last stand. Brutal fighting and kamikaze attacks couldn't stop America's advance. Japan's defeat was inevitable, and surrender loomed. My curious fellows, on August 6, 1945, Hiroshima burned. America's atomic bomb flattened the city, killing tens of thousands in a flash. Japan's defiance crumbled under this unthinkable horror. Nagasaki fell on August 9, 1945. A second atomic bomb devastated the city, sealing Japan's fate. The nation's spirit was shattered, and surrender was the only path. Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945. Emperor Hirohito's radio broadcast stunned the nation, announcing defeat. Japan's empire was gone, and a new era began. The American occupation began in 1945. General MacArthur reshaped Japan, enforcing democracy and disbanding the military. Japan was humbled but ready to rebuild. Japan's new constitution in 1947 was revolutionary. My curious fellows, it guaranteed rights, embraced peace, and made the emperor a figurehead. Japan was now a democratic nation, ready to rise. By the 1950s, Japan's economy stirred. American aid and Japanese hard work rebuilt factories. Cars, electronics, and steel began flowing, setting the stage for a miracle. The 1964 Tokyo Olympics marked Japan's return. The world saw a modern Japan, new stadiums, bullet trains, and pride. Japan was back, stronger than ever. Japan's tech boom defined the 1970s. My curious fellows, companies like Sony and Toyota led the world in innovation. Japan's electronics and cars became global symbols of quality. By the 1980s, Japan was a global giant. Its economy rivaled America's, with Tokyo as a financial hub. From ashes, Japan had built an economic empire. My curious fellows, Japan's culture went global. Anime, sushi, and martial arts captivated the world. Japan wasn't just a power, it was a cultural force, shaping modern trends. Today, Japan stands tall. My curious fellows, from samurai to skyscrapers, Japan defied humiliation, war, and atomic scars to become a beacon of resilience. Its story teaches us strength endures. Subscribe to Vanished Files for more true history and crime. Hit that bell icon. My curious fellows, Japan's saga from samurai pride to atomic scars and global triumphs shows a nation's unbreakable spirit. What shocked you most about Japan's journey? Drop a comment. Did America's bombs or Japan's ambition shape its fate? What history or true crime story should Vanished Files uncover next? Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more epic tales. Let's keep exploring history together.